In 1858, one of the most legendary games of chess history took place between the brilliant Paul Morphy and two prominent amateurs, the Duke of Brunswick and the Count of Isouard. Morphy, already known for his tactical brilliance, was just 21 years old at the time and was in his prime. This game, known as Morphy versus the Duke and the Count, became a symbol of advanced chess strategy and attacking flair. What makes this game even more fascinating is that Morphy faced two opponents simultaneously, and not just any opponents. These were two aristocrats, completely new to the game and more interested in the social experience of chess than the intricacies of the game itself. Yet, despite being outnumbered, Morphy's brilliant combination of strategic depth and aggressive play would leave the Duke and the Count in awe. Now, let's dive into the game of the century, where Morphy shows how a chess master should play. This is a masterpiece of attack, sacrifice, and precision. Morphy opens with pawn to e4, a classic and highly flexible first move. He's immediately staking his claim in the center and preparing for rapid development. The Duke and the Count respond symmetrically with pawn to e5, a standard defense, reinforcing their control over the center, and preparing to develop their pieces. Morphy develops his knight to f3, attacking the e5 pawn and preparing to dominate the center. This is a solid, developing move that sets the stage for a quick attack. The Duke and the Count opt for pawn to d6, reinforcing the e5 pawn and preparing to bring their pieces into play. However, this move already begins to show a slight flaw. Black's position will soon become cramped. Morphy strikes with pawn to d4, immediately challenging Black's control of the center and opening up lines for his queen and bishop. The Duke and the Count respond with bishop to g4, pinning Morphy's knight to the queen. This move, however, proves to be a mistake in the long run, as it leads to a weakening of Black's position. Morphy decides to capture on e5 with pawn takes e5, creating a strong central presence and opening up the position. The Duke and the Count capture back with bishop takes f3, removing Morphy's knight, but this exchange removes one of Black's key defensive pieces. The game is already beginning to slip away from them. Morphy recaptures the bishop with queen takes f3, keeping pressure on Black's position and centralizing his queen powerfully. This gives Morphy a dominant position with threats across the board. The Duke and the Count recapture on e5 with pawn takes e5, but this only opens lines for Morphy's pieces to invade. Morphy develops his bishop to c4, eyeing the f7 square, one of the most vulnerable points in Black's position. This move also increases the pressure on the king side and coordinates beautifully with the queen. The Duke and the Count develop their knight to f6, defending against immediate threats and preparing for kingside development. However, they are already feeling the pressure of Morphy's development lead. Morphy brings his queen to b3, attacking both the weak f7 square and the b7 pawn, increasing the pressure on Black's position. This is a brilliant move by Morphy, taking full advantage of Black's underdeveloped position. The Duke and the Count respond by moving their queen to e7, defending f7 and preparing to castle, but it's a defensive move that fails to solve the core issues in Black's camp. Morphy develops his knight to c3, increasing pressure on the center and preparing for potential tactics. The knight on c3 also supports the queen on b3, controlling key central squares and maintaining flexibility. The Duke and the Count play pawn to c6, further reinforcing the d5 square and preparing to support their position, but making their position more passive and cramped. Morphy develops his bishop to g5, pinning the Black knight on f6 to the queen on e7. This move restricts Black's mobility and puts immediate pressure on Black's position. The Duke and the Count are now in a zugzwang-like situation. They cannot develop the queen's knight easily because the d6 pawn would hang, and their pieces are tangled and poorly coordinated. The Duke and the Count attempt to break free with pawn to b5, attacking Morphy's bishop on c4 and attempting to expand on the queen side and gain some breathing room. However, this creates weaknesses that Morphy is ready to exploit. Morphy strikes decisively with knight takes b5. The knight captures the pawn, and suddenly black's position is under severe threat. The duke and the count are forced to recapture with c-pawn, takes b5, but this opens up devastating lines for Morphy's attack. Morphy plays bishop, takes b5 check. The bishop captures the pawn with check, forcing black's king into danger. This is not a sacrifice. It's a powerful forcing move that disrupts black's coordination. The duke and the count must block with knight from b8 to d7, the only move to stop the check. But this places the knight on an unstable square where it will soon fall. Morphy unleashes a stunning blow with castle's queenside. With 0-0-0, Morphy not only brings his king to safety, but simultaneously activates his rook on the d-file, where it will become a devastating attacking force. The duke and the count respond with rook to d8, trying to contest the d-file and defend against the mounting threats, but it's too little, too late. Morphy crashes through with rook takes d7. The rook captures the knight on d7, removing a key defender and threatening immediate devastation. The duke and the count are forced to recapture with rook takes d7, but Morphy's attack is now unstoppable. Morphy brings his second rook into the attack with rook to d1, doubling on the d-file and putting unbearable pressure on black's position. The rook eyes the trapped rook on d7 and prepares for the final combination. The duke and the count play queen to e6, trying to defend and keep some pieces active, but the position is beyond saving. Morphy delivers a crushing blow with bishop takes d7, check. The bishop captures the rook with check, winning material and forcing black's king into a mating net. The duke and the count must recapture with knight takes d7, the only legal move, but this walks directly into Morphy's brilliant finale. Morphy plays the spectacular queen to b8 check. The queen invades with check, and black's position collapses. The duke and the count are forced to capture with knight takes b8, blocking the check but leaving their king fatally exposed. Morphy delivers checkmate with rook to d8 checkmate. The rook slides down the d-file to deliver the final blow. A beautiful back rank mate. The black king on e8 has no escape squares, blocked in by its own pieces, and the knight on b8 can only watch helplessly. Checkmate. This game is truly a masterpiece. Paul Morphy played with unmatched precision, combining rapid development, tactical brilliance, and a devastating attack. The duke and the count, despite their best efforts, were no match for Morphy's attacking genius. The final checkmate was the culmination of a brilliant combination, with Morphy sacrificing his queen to deliver a pure back-rank mate with his rook. This game, played at the Paris Opera in 1858, remains one of the most famous and instructive games in chess history, demonstrating the power of superior development and precise calculation. Thanks for watching. What did you think of Morphy's incredible attack? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more amazing chess games like this. See you in the next video.